All right, welcome back, fan viewers on all walks of life. Welcome to Zupi, the Autotelic Mindset. I'm here with Mr. Justin Duguay, and I have to say he's going to be break the ice here with he's going to be my first business owner, entrepreneur on the Autotelic podcast. So I'm going to kind of give him the floor and let him introduce himself.
Yeah, my name's Justin. Been in the, I guess this is a fitness business that we're talking about today. So I've been, in the fitness business for a long time. Currently own 2 CrossFit gyms, and we're sitting at one of them right now. And really excited. I've listened to Adrian on your podcast, Adrian Sorchetti, big fan of that guy. Kalita, love Kalita. So it's a pleasure to be here, brother.
Yeah, it's good. I've had a couple athletes. I had a local artist, and now to have a business owner will be kind of cool. Keeping it in, the sports, fitness, and health and wellness stream, because we know, this is a business first and foremost, but we know you have a couple big time athletes making their way up the ranks as well. So we'll definitely be able to touch on, business, but sports and everyday life as well through what you do. Yeah. So knowing Justin, a little bit of his background, he's like all my other people I've had on, Durham region boy, grew up in Whitby, and, I'm kind of a broken record here, but Whitby is just a great spot to grow up. I think we have all the facilities, schools and recreation centers to provide, us kids to grow up in. So kind of give me your lowdown, because I know you're an athlete yourself.
If you want to call it that.
Well,
yeah. I grew up playing some sports for sure.
Some sports. So walk us through, some of the sports you did play, friendships you learned, and some of the lessons that kind of are instilled in you today that you learned as a kid growing up.
Yeah. Whitby is an amazing spot to grow up. I totally agree with you. So playing, and also my parents sacrificed a lot for me to play sports. So I played hockey growing up, still our closest family friends are from the hockey days and baseball days. There was a time where I was playing rep hockey and rep baseball back to back. So it was like hockey rink to baseball diamond. And, I didn't walk myself there. So the parents were running around getting me to all of my games and stuff. And
hopping in the minivan.
the blue Astro minivan. Yeah, I think it was a blue Astro. Yeah, Queen.
Classic.
Listening to Queen.
Classic.
Yeah, that was our soundtrack of choice. Another one, Bites the Dust. And then after the baseball days, I got into golf, really passionate about golf. And my granddad introduced me to golf at a pretty young age. And of all the sports that I played, I continue on with golf the most. I don't play recreational hockey anymore. I did a little bit of softball, so still keep up with that a little bit. But golf is the thing that I love doing with our members here at the gym, and it's a big social thing for me.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Yeah, you say that, because being an entrepreneur, you're kind of it's on you to begin with, right? And still until you start developing your team, and at golf, kind of the same way, right?
You're right.
So it's funny you've kind of went kind of towards the golf more than anything.
Yeah, it very much is an individual sport, and it's funny golfing with people who have a hard time with that, right? who are maybe a little bit pessimistic, who get on the golf course. It's a tough place to be pessimistic. So I really enjoy golf, and it's very accessible too, right? You're outside, you're hanging out with buddies for 4 hours. It's just right now with the 2 businesses and kids and everything else, it's hard to find the time.
And like you said, even if you're not the greatest golfer, you have a couple beers, you're with your buddies, becomes more of a social thing than a competitive thing.
Absolutely.
One way or another.
It's always competitive when I play golf.
I know. Golfing with your dad a little bit, he always references some of the stuff you kind of tell him and stuff. So absolutely. I definitely see where you get your competitiveness from.
Absolutely.
Too funny. Okay, so definitely we can see you're kind of a well-rounded athlete with regards to, hockey, baseball, golf. You've kind of seen it all. So I kind of want to transition. How's that from your sports childhood kind of moved into kind of the business stuff? Because knowing you, you've been in this industry for a long time. And I think people don't realize how long you've been in this industry, and almost since you've been like a teenager, essentially.
Yeah. 17.
Yeah.
Since 17. And what's funny about my journey in the fitness space is I've literally done every role. I've every position if you walked into a gym and you looked at the person at the front desk, I've been that person.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the person who sells the memberships, I've been that person. If you look at the person who is on the floor training clients, I've been that person. The person who's upstairs signing all the contracts and managing everything, I've been that person. So my experience in the fitness space is well-rounded, much like playing sports growing up. But I've never not been responsible for my own success. And playing sports, like I loved being on a team and stuff, but I always really took ownership of what I could do in order to be a better teammate, what I could do in order to play better in my sport. And it's always been the same for me in business as well. It's like, okay, I work at a gym, but what can I do to make myself better within this structure? So as much as some of my roles might have looked more like kind of like an employee type of role, I've always, in terms of mindset, been taken full ownership of my own success. And that's something that I'm fortunate to be able to communicate to our clients now that we own multiple facilities and have a growing client base. That's something that I preach because it's true to my heart. And it's something that I've learned a ton from sports to my first job to all the rest.
And it's funny because, people have this idea of an entrepreneur. He owns his own business, but you can be an entrepreneur in a sense of being in a company and, making other people better, making that division better is very entrepreneurial. And like we throw out the term entrepreneurial spirit, where you don't necessarily have to have the big title business owner. There's other ways to make an impact. And it's funny, like you said, going back to sports and some of the other people I had on with Adrian and them talking about, playing a role within the team, becomes so important. And people sometimes get fixated on, being the top scorer or, being the business owner to give you that title. But to play a role and doing your role really well is sometimes, it's just as important,
That's a great point. And ownership of that role is controllable, right? Me wondering what other people think of me, or the extrinsic validations that some people look for, like trying to be the top scorer so that other people think that you're great. That is not taking ownership, right? That is stuff that is outside of your control. So I've always found, fortunately, I've been able to really focus on what's been controllable in my life and try to optimize that. And I think that's really led me to where I'm at today. And that's why I preach sustainability. And that's why I preach taking ownership of your process. That's why I preach it so much to our community. So it's a great point.
So you've been in the business for, like you said, since you've been 17.
15 years.
15 years. Yeah. So from when you started to now, what are some of the things you've seen? How has it developed? Because you obviously gone through a lot to jump on to opening up in a CrossFit gym and then also implementing your own processes, strategies, models into what you do. So let's go back to when you were maybe 15, 17, what was then and what's it look like now?
My roles were very different. I think everybody, for the most part, gets into fitness because either they really enjoy it themselves and they grew up that way, or they have this feeling that they want to help people, right? And that feeling for me is why I got into the space. And what I found when I worked for other companies is I had a very hard time being the entrepreneur that I was and trying to help people the way that I wanted to within somebody else's subset of structure. So, and also what I saw was like, hey, I could be amazing in my industry. I could be amazing working for another gym, but I could barely make enough money to support a family. So in my mind, I thought that I needed to go out on my own in order to be able to build a life for my future family. Not only that, but I thought to myself, if you can be an amazing employee at one of these gyms and not make ends meet, then hopefully one day I could open a company where I could have people who work for me who could have an amazing life as a result of helping people. So it was not only my own desire, I also wanted to blow open the doors for other people who are passionate about helping others and say like, hey, you can be equally as passionate as you are, not have to be a salesperson. Just do your job really, really well, and you can have an amazing life. And if I think people thought about their jobs that way, and entrepreneurs thought about their companies that way, I think it's going to lend itself to a much better relationship.
It's the idea of, I call it the golden circle, the why, what, how.
Yeah.
Starting in the middle, your why, your purpose. I think that's kind of what you're going off. What's your purpose? Why do you do this? And I know we're going to move down our list here, and we're kind of jumping. Things are already coming to fruition here, but I won't get too far ahead of ourselves. But that process and people buying into what you're selling them, and then essentially, them radiating your passion, but is also something they're motivated to do as well. I'm just going to back up here a second, because I know you've been in the industry for a while and you worked in the GTA for a bit. What brings you out here towards the East End, the Durham region, and now over into Newcastle, that maybe, I don't know, Toronto just seems, stereotypically, almost like the big city. Why not be in the big city, so to speak? So what brings you down to the East End?
That's interesting. I actually never really thought much about it, but if I were to peg it, I'd say living in Toronto, I lived in Toronto for 2.5 years, and I was young. Like it was expensive to live in Toronto. It was a tough time. And I found things were so fast. Things moved so quickly. Everything was so expensive. Just like keeping your head above water was the main priority. And I find when I'm in that place, I can't be creative. I can't come up with new ideas. And when I can't be creative, it suffocates me. So what I looked at coming back east as an opportunity to do was get my foot in the door with something that's a little bit more cost effective, a little bit more sustainable in the beginning, and try to truly build something unique and something that aligns with my passions. And if it works really great out here, then maybe I'll bring it into a bigger market. That's maybe kind of what I thought. But now it's funny that I say that, because we're in Whitby, which is a growing population, that gym's exploding. And I actually went further east, almost like I have like unresolved business. And what's interesting for you is you've gotten to see this, all the way up the line. And here is a very different gym than Whitby. And you probably noticed that too. So I think that it's a constant thing of testing new ideas and satisfying that fire that's in my belly. If I don't satisfy that fire, I become less good at everything.
It's funny because you're talking about mindset. When you were in Toronto, the busyness, it clouded you. So, to tap into the flow state, which we talk a lot, when we're in that flow state in the present moment, creativity is enhanced, motivation is enhanced, and learning is enhanced. And we'll move into the your balance board and stuff. But it's cool. I always say, when you can recognize these things, that's the first step.
You're right.
Some people, and Toronto's a good example, you get stuck in, let's call it the system where, you're trying to make men's eat, and, things are going to get better, and you get stuck. But if you can recognize, what you're passionate about, and it might be staying in Toronto, it might be going elsewhere, quitting your job, joining a new club. But if you can first recognize that, I think that's the first step. We might have the answers, and it always helps to talk to people. But I think first and foremost is recognizing what's going up inside your head. And it's funny how the mindset into your business and your path that you've taken tied in closely. And you're saying before, come to the East End, being more creative, and becoming a business owner to kind of emulate your energy, your values, and what you truly believe in to your members. But it's funny, I want to go back, because I remember the day or the time where you had to make that decision. And this will lead us into our balance board, because I might have my time here wrong, but you might have been, I don't know if you were married yet or not. I think you were.
Man, even I mixed this up.
So I'm not gonna, I'm just, maybe you were, maybe you were, maybe you weren't. But, you had a great partner that supported you.
The best.
And you had to make a decision whether you were going to go off on your own. And I know at the time she had to make a decision too. And that's where I think the balance board is going to come into play here, which we'll get into, why you do things, making decisions based on a bunch of variables. But I remember that time, and you had to make the decision, and it wasn't an easy decision. But talk about when you finally decided, I'm going to go off onto my own, and I'm going to start CrossFit Dioxide. And some of the challenges and thoughts you had when you were going through that transition.
Yeah. We, just to put some context into that, Jasmine was in the process. It was my wife, who's like my foundation for everything. She was in the process of becoming an RCMP officer and very far down the line. So it was like she was going to go and I was going to pick up with her, and that was going to be it. But then since the beginning, we've always sat down, and when we make any sort of decision that's substantial, we look at each other honestly and we say, is this going to make us more happy? And we do it for big things. We do it for little things too. And we live a very modest lifestyle. We don't go on big fancy trips and all the rest. So I'm fortunate that she's on board with that. And because I think we make decisions based on what we think is going to make us happy and what's in alignment with our goals, it allows us to be present. Right? We're not wishing for things all the time. We're not wishing something was different. We're like, we built this together. Let's live in it. So in terms of like how it felt during that time, it was scary. Right? For someone who was like newly married, I wanted to provide for my wife and our future kids and stuff. And when you're first starting a business, it's barely an option. So
and through that time, I mean, opening up a business, it was a big sacrifice in yourself. But I remember you making commitments to members that wanted to kind of follow you, and you're in it to make money, but the first couple of years, it's all reinvested and stuff. But you made a commitment to these members, and you held some of their memberships off, which says a lot about you and your character. I'm
glad you brought that up
as a coach and a business owner.
And that first transition for somebody who's going out on their own and making a decision to do so is already very hard. And I made the decision to do so knowing a lot of my members in the beginning were still under contract with another company, who I used to work for. Right? Things didn't work out at that company with the CrossFit, and that's what caused me to leave. And when I left, they still were responsible for a certain amount of payments, some people up to 6 months. So instead of asking them to pay twice, we honored all of their memberships. So a lot of our first founding members, worked out at our gym, but paid another company.
Crazy.
Right? So that made things a little bit more challenging. But again, I felt so good about it. And all I cared about was making them better. That's like, it wasn't the money rolling in or lack thereof that I even considered, right? We had enough to like barely make it by in the beginning. But all I cared was that these people had a place that they loved. These people were able to come in and they were able to get after their goals because of me pursuing my dream. So all of that stuff really like fell into place really nicely. Although the revenue didn't come in the beginning, I believe it came back threefold because of the decisions we made.
For sure. So we're going to transition here, or we're getting into it anyways, the balance board. For people listening here, you can already see Justin's balance board changing. And when I mean balance board, we're taking, it's almost a globe or a representation of your life. You have your career, your family relationships, maybe you're in school still, maybe you're active in a sport. So listening to Justin talk, you can kind of see he's created from speaking, he's created his balance board. So we're going to get into how it's transitioned to now, and what are kind of some of the things that you've learned and that you do to make sure you're as balanced as possible, managing your business, your family life, your social life. And, I know you have your ups and downs, but what are some of the tricks and tips and things you've learned to keep that as balanced as much as possible?
You mentioned earlier that you have to be aware of your own thoughts and your own actions and taking ownership. And when you first started saying this, I thought as much as I'm very motivated and driven, I'm also easy on myself. I know that I'm not perfect. And I also know that in order to grow a successful company, there are times in my life where that has to be number one, right? There's a good book called One Thing, and it says like, if you think about balance as something that constantly always exists and you need to be like 25% into everything, that's really challenging for me. What I find works best for me is when I'm at work, I'm 150% at work. When I'm at home, I try to be 150% at home. But I think what worked really well for me is whether I'm out playing golf with my buddies at the course or some of my members, whether I'm at the gym, whether I'm at home, I'm focused on building relationships with the people I'm with. And I think that's what's awesome for me is I get to be the same person at work that I am at home, that I don't have to satisfy my boss. I don't have to be a different person at work because of the politics and company culture. I don't have to do any of that stuff. I can be myself with a servitude mentality. And that's, when I go home to my wife and my kids, I have the same attitude. When I go out and play golf, same attitude. So I think the consistency in my life and knowing that the people who surround me love me for that, that is how I maintain my balance. But it's not always amazing. Like some days it's like 17 hours at work and I get home and I'm like, I can't be a great dad, but Jasmine knows that, right? Or I can't be an amazing husband in that moment. So if I was not easy on myself, then I would batter myself for that, right? Like I would be like, man, you're failing. You're not being a good dad. I'm not good at work. I'm not this, not that. And then that ends up kind of manifesting into more negative things. So I'm easy on myself, right? And I try to always be optimistic about what I'm trying to do with the understanding that I'm just doing my best.
It's funny, like you're saying you're easy on yourself, but like you seem like such a high achiever. So, I mean, there must be points where you're a little bit hard on yourself, no? Or how do you maybe catch yourself, oh, I'm being too hard. Let's look big picture here.
You feel, this balance board is interesting because I feel when I'm not in check. It's just like, I don't do anything well at all. So I think that's like my radar, so to speak, is like, okay, I didn't deliver a great class. I'm not eating well, or I'm not sleeping well. That's when I know things are out of whack for me. So I check myself pretty quickly. And when it comes to being a high achiever, I think that literally is only not because I'm hard on myself, but because I pursued what I know is in my soul. I'm in something 195% because I know it's what I need to be doing right now. That's it. And I that's non-negotiable.
And then, so you're saying you're 150% in each side of the balance board when you're in that side. Do you ever catch yourself, is there ever a crossover where like you're with your kids and you're thinking business and you gotta be like,
always
kids, like I gotta have my focus here because I'm giving 150%, or I have to give 150%. So explain some of that. How do you, catch yourself, or just talk us through a little bit about that.
That's a weakness. That's a weakness. And what will be interesting is, as you progress in your career and you're helping other business owners, find balance on this board. I think, I don't mean to speak for everybody here, but a lot of people can relate if they have their own company. We get so invested and emotional about our company. And I have a really, really difficult time shutting that off. It honestly is, but at the same time, it fills me up, right? So I have a hard time at the end of the day shutting it off, or sometimes in the middle of the day when I'm seeing my kids shutting that off. But at the same time, like the time with my kids fills me up and I love it. The time here fills me up and I love it. So is one better than the other? That's something I struggle with, right? But definitely like being able to separate the two, I think is important. But I have this understanding that like, I need to do this business. Like it's just as much a part of me as everything else.
So you're human is what you're saying.
No.
So you don't walk on water.
I do. No, I'm just joking. There's it's important that you brought that up because I purposely don't put out a lot of like negative stuff because I don't think that helps anybody. And negative stuff, especially with social the way it is, speaks so loudly. People jump on board so quickly with negativity. So I don't put that out there, but that doesn't mean things aren't exceptionally difficult, right? So I'm really glad you said that.
And I always say, like, I try to help people with managing their balance board, but the secret is your balance board's never balanced. And that's life, right? And that's your balance board. That's a little bit of, your representation of your life. And, if it was balanced 100% of the time, something would be wrong. You know what I mean? Or give me the magic formula or something. But the truth is it's never fully balanced, and where there's obstacles we're facing, overcoming, and we're pivoting, and we're trying to learn from our mistakes to manage our balance board better. And like I said, it grows with you. You're constantly going through different times of your life, getting married, having kids, owning a business, graduating from school, things are happening, right? And especially right now, society, social media, the internet, so high paced, right?
Super fast.
And we absorb information so fast that, sometimes we lose track of just being present.
You're right.
And, assessing our balance board.
Yeah. I tell our clients sometimes, I'm like, it's like a bowling alley laneway. And I say coaches are just like the bumpers. You're rolling this ball down at the pins, and our job is just to keep you in line. Like, we're just trying to make sure that, like, with your attempts, you knock down one pin, and that's good enough. Yeah. And I think that, like, this balance board analogy is really interesting, because that's like kind of like our life, right? Yeah. Like, this balance board maybe can be the bumpers that just keeps us in check and make sure that we're staying in the right lane. Yeah. So I love that concept.
So going off of the bowling alley thing and moving into, we're going to move into the CrossFit section of your balance board, essentially your business here. And we're talking that numbers and value. Yeah, numbers are, sometimes people are really driven by numbers, whether it's in the gym, whether it's sports, whether it's business, dollar signs, sports, how many goals you have, how many points you have. And in the gym, the pounds, the amount of weight you're lifting. We're so driven by that. And society has a lot to do with that, with the social media stuff. But as a business owner, how do you keep people in check? Because they're going to hit those benchmarks, those PRs. But when they're not hitting those marks, how do you keep them sticking to what you call sticking to the process?
Yeah, I think that comes with recognition of what gets you to those things. Right. So what you're referencing in CrossFit, and CrossFit is like, this is a good thing and also a horrible thing. And CrossFit Inc., I might go a little bit off the rails here, but so CrossFit Inc., when it first started, it was very tightly associated with CrossFit Games. And that's a really like high intensity, fast paced game, right? That's really alluring for the average person. So a lot of workouts are timed. Right. And people put their score on the board at the end of class. A lot of weights are measured, right? So if you back squat, you put your weight in the system and it's a measured thing. And it's very easy to think that getting a faster time or getting a higher weight is your measure of success. But what we've done is we built a little bit of a different narrative. We've gone away from, and CrossFit Inc. as well is trying to get away from this CrossFit Games mentality where people race all the time. And like, they're really trying to get away from it because it's not what's best for the general population. And the way we've combated that years ago is we stopped measuring everything. Like, we have certain points of assessment that we want to understand about our clients so that we can make our program better. But what we say to people is, like, their measurement of success is how well they move. Their measurement of success is how consistent they've been throughout the year. So what we choose to reward is unique from a lot of other CrossFit facilities. And my reason for that is, I think that if you are constantly seeking instant gratification, then it's going to take away from the sustainability. And if you're not consistent with something for long enough, you're only ever going to reach a mediocre status. So if I want my clients to achieve greatness in whatever they're trying to accomplish, I'm going to need them to do it for years. And in order to do something for years, you can't be racing every day, right? That just doesn't work. So our message is built in all the time. This is about what this workout does for you in 10 years. Think about that. Like, if you want to be, a really healthy 50-year-old, it's possible that some of the decisions you're making right now are going to influence whether or not that comes true, whether it's your nutrition, whether it's your workouts. And when I communicate to clients in that way, they're far less likely to take a huge risk in a workout to get a better time, because they realize, in the grand scheme of things, for 99% of us, that doesn't matter, right? So context is how I've always gone about creating a sustainable system, not only for our members, but also for our staff. Like, you becoming an amazing coach right now with our community is going to give you a trajectory to potentially do other things in the future. And that's what we're always talking about, is like the 5-year plan, the 10-year plan, like how to be sustainable to achieve great things, not just something that feels good right now.
And kind of being a member at your gym, the Whippy gym there, you seem like you've created such a good culture, a community, and it's truly, I think, a reflection of a lot of stuff you're talking about, and just having your passion kind of, like I said, just, emulate off you onto them. And because a lot of these members who are part of the CrossFit community, now you see them posting, like they're doing the 10-kilometer run, support this charity. They're playing on this hockey team for something else. It's cool how you have your community, but these people, like you said, they're trying to, you're helping them achieve greatness, and they've also put themselves out in other communities. And I think that's cool when you look at it, big picture, and some of the stuff they do. What's the secret? How do you how do you attract these people? Because it seems like it doesn't matter if it's Whippy or Newcastle, you're learning something new about these people. Like you just did a podcast with a member, and his message and what he had to offer was so unique and special. How do you attract these people?
I don't know. I think everybody comes in from their own walk of life. I don't know if it's a type of person or it's the way that we try to treat them. Because if you take any person and you bring them into this environment, and they'll realize really, really quickly that we only care about their success, right? So I think what happens is if people come consistently enough to really feel that like, hey, myself and Courtney and Katie and Chris and Lisa and all of our coaching staff, which has grown substantially over a little while, is here to like sincerely help them, then they start to give us that back. So it becomes a really balanced relationship where, yes, they are coming here as a business and as a service to increase their fitness. They also feel like they're investing in the community. They want to see us succeed as a company as much as we want to see them succeed. And you would think that me opening a second gym 15 minutes up the road might be a strange business decision. But I can't tell you how much excitement it's injected into the community. Not only that, it's like given us an opportunity to raise some of our other staff up, right? We made a short-term sacrifice financially to open this location so that we could continue to raise people up. And our community sees that. So I always believe that action speaks way louder than words. And if you are here for long enough, our actions truly speak to us trying to make you better. And if you believe that in your heart as a client, we can't go wrong, right? We just have to continue to try to stay true to that as our business grows, as our community grows.
And I personally, I love it because you can walk through the doors, and it's kind of, I'm sure I'll speak on behalf of probably a lot of the members, is you get when you walk the doors, the junk, all the other emotions you had up in inside your head, whether it's from, work that day, like it's shut off. Walk in the gym and you're going to go through a really good workout. But secondly, you're doing it with a great group of people, and you have time slots, and like it literally doesn't matter which time slot you are in. You get a totally different crowd, different vibes, but so supportive. And I think that makes going to the gym so much more exciting because half the battle is getting through the door.
You're right.
But knowing when you walk through that door, you're going to be embraced with all this love and support through a wide range of members, from, a teenager,
that is fascinating, right?
A master's member who's maybe in their 40s or 50s, and they're going to push you just as hard as anybody else would and support you. I think you've done a great job. And if you're looking to get involved in fitness and stuff, this is a great place to come to, speaking from my own experience.
Thanks, buddy.
But I know we were talking about, the individualism through golf, being an entrepreneur, but now you've created a team. And as you grow, you have to create that team. How do you shape your team members so they have a similar or same vision as you, but yet you're pushing them individually?
Yeah. So you mean team as in our staff?
Your staff.
Yeah. And team's a better word, but what's cool about the team thing is we've actually just recently transitioned to like this whole team dioxide concept where like CrossFit is the methodology that we've been using in order to get into shape, or at least our interpretation of CrossFit, right? Because every affiliate has their own interpretation of what CrossFit is to their community. So CrossFit is something that we do, but that feeling and that culture that you're talking about is a team, right? So we call ourselves Team Dioxide, and everybody who's a member is part of our team.
Yeah.
And whether they're out doing the Ragnar run or like Linda doing her marathon or whatever it is, they wear their Team Dioxide shirt.
I like it.
Right? It's not about CrossFit.
Yeah.
It's about the people and the feeling that they're representing when they go out and they do these things. Yeah. So what's interesting about how we ended up growing our staff, our first real hire was Courtney, who is now the head coach of our Whitby gym, and she's been with me since the very beginning. I could do an entire podcast on what I think about Courtney. She's fantastic, and she's really grown into her role in Whitby there. But the thing about the rest of our staff, for the most part, I knew the type of person they were, and I got to see them interact with my members long before they became staff. So what I see really early on is somebody who cares and takes ownership. So the person who maybe doesn't have a great workout that day, but is the first one to go around and fist bump the rest of our members. That means way more to me. I would rather take somebody, and as we grow our team in the future, this is what I'm going to continue to look for. I will take somebody who is that person in the locker room that, boosts morale and is optimistic and is servitude in nature. I will take that person and spend 2 years investing everything I have in making them a great fitness coach, right? I would much rather do that than take somebody who has a substantial education but a bad attitude. So the reason our team has meshed so well is because they have all come from this place of showing me that they care way more about other people than they do themselves in these moments. And then from there, they've luckily over the last little while, all the coaching decisions we've made have been great decisions, because sometimes it doesn't always go that way. But I think that's what it is. And not only that, but a lot of my time now, and this has been a tough transition for me and my members, because I used to coach from 6 a.m. till 9 p.m. My relationship was with my membership. And in the last year, I think a lot of people have felt me having to move out of that. But the reason that has happened is because I'm trying to put it into my team. I'm trying to find a trajectory for someone like Courtney. Because remember, we talked initially, one of my goals as a business owner is to have somebody who can have an amazing life living in this space, helping people for a living. So I've had to remove myself from the gym floor for long enough to build someone like Courtney up, give her an opportunity to be an amazing leader. So I think what our team sees, and hopefully they see, is a trajectory for them where they could make an amazing living doing what they love and helping other people. So I think that my intentions are felt on a membership level, and I think my intentions are felt on my team's level. And that's why we are all on the same page, right?
It just kind of brought me up to story, because right now I'm coaching, I'm coaching a hockey team right now, and we had to have a sit down chat with them. And we basically had to say what you said about attitude and, caring. So what I said to them, I'm like, look, you got Johnny and Scotty here, both great hockey players, they put up good points. But you got one guy here who, every time he comes off the ice, he slams a stick. And then the other guy here comes off, pats the guy on the back. Good job. Let's go. Let's get him back here. And then you move in the change room. You got that same guy who's, maybe picking on other players, bullying them a little bit. The other guy, bringing them up again. And then through hockey, we do the hockey stuff, but we have to bring it into the classroom. Scouts are coming. They're going to ask us questions. So what kind of student are you, That guy who had the bad attitude, he's maybe an A+ student, but as soon as he's done his work, he's causing shenanigans in the classroom. Where the other guy, maybe he's a C+ student, but he's always asking the teacher, how can I get better? What can I do to get better? So then I asked the guys I coach, which player would you take? And I said, you don't have to tell me your answer, but which coach would you take?
That's
which
fantastic.
player would you take? So it kind of, so important, it doesn't matter if you're, teenagers on a team, these lessons you learn growing up are so important. So it's funny to say that, because like I said, we just had that talk with our team.
And you have to protect that, right? You have to lead by example. And the thing that's non-negotiable for me is you absolutely, so if we have a class, for example, and we're talking about mistakes that a coach can make within my business, my coach, if they give a bad cue, to me, that's tolerable.
Yeah.
Right. I can deal with that. We can fix that. Having a bad attitude or treating somebody improperly is absolute no-fly zone.
Yeah.
Right. And the thing about this is the good and the hard and the easy thing about me is I get to choose my team. Right. But they all know that like there's a very dark line. Yeah. Like we treat people well always. That's it. There is no other way around that. And I think that messaging trickles into the community. If a member comes in who has a bad attitude consistently, we politely ask them to leave. Yeah. We just say that this is not the right place for you. No. So our culture is exactly that. And that is so sacred, and that has to be worked for. Like every relationship, that has to be worked for, and you have to lead by example. That bad attitude can never be rewarded. And there's difficult conversations that have to happen almost every day to protect it, right? Yeah,
there's a fine line for sure.
It's absolutely fine, but it's very dark.
And it's nice as as the leader, the business owner here, you laid that down as soon as possible, and they know that is so important.
For sure, but they're also the type of people innately who understand that. Exactly. So it's not something that needs to be checked all the time. It's like these people, that's the way they live, and that's why I look for that when I hire staff, is because like I don't want to be having that conversation about attitude every day. I just don't, like, it's exhausting. Yeah. Like I have enough time managing my own stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course. So that's so I want to talk just a little bit about programming, because you kind of talked about it, how the CrossFit had that like mentality of like chasing numbers and times and stuff. And showing and teaching the members here that, we might be doing this movement. It might not be fun, but it's going to benefit you 5 years, 10 years down the road. And you do a good job of communicating, but maybe explain, because I know you do postings, social media, YouTube, all that. Explain to maybe the people listening how you communicate that with them, and to explain to them the true benefits, like I said, down the road. Because, you might walk into a work and be like, oh, this is so boring. I don't want to do this. Yeah. But long term,
I've got a fresh example of that. Yeah.
Let's hear it.
There's so many ways I could go about answering that. The main thing is educating our clients why. So we don't have to do this. We post YouTube videos every single day detailing what the workout is, why they're doing it, how they can scale it. We try to educate our members a ton on the front end. That's a big part of our business, right? It's kind of like a big part of our linear on that other side. The other thing is having the faith and confidence in your coaching staff to come in, even if you're scared of the workout, to come in and do it. Yeah. Right. So that's kind of the first thing is educating our clients. Another thing that I find interesting is we have a massive population of people who are great CrossFitters. Great. And we don't fitness race all the time. Yeah. So I think what happens is, like, if I was like, hey guys, and a lot of people come into our gym because they heard about CrossFit, and I'm very respectful of that. And some people want to get good at it, and that's cool with me too, right? As much as I preach longevity and everything else, it's okay for you to have a goal that you want to be great at CrossFit. But my thing is, if I told them that, hey, listen, you don't have to race all the time in order to become good at this. And they didn't race all the time, and they got way worse at CrossFit, then I have a problem. Right. But what's happening is people are noticing, because of our mentality when it comes to training style, focus on mechanics and fundamentals and programming to that. It's one thing to say that, hey guys, I really want you to focus on your fundamentals today, and then give you a 10-minute workout where you're doing power cleans as fast as possible. That's off with the messaging. So I had a workout yesterday, and all day from literally 6 a.m. until whatever class it was in the evening, everybody was, for 30 minutes, dialed in with Bulgarian split squats, single leg deadlifts, kettlebell swings, eccentric squats, and bike. Like the most boring program, like at face value. But yesterday was one of the most validating days in my coaching career, honestly. And that might seem ridiculous to people, because they'll look at the program and be like, why would that be validating? My reason for that being validating is our coaching staff and majority of our members had an amazing attitude about coming in and learning how to move well. There was no reward at the end,
Yeah.
aside from the fact that they came in and invested their time trying to get better in a very sustainable way. But there was a class in particular that came in, and this is where mindset comes in huge. The first thing they said is like, this is boring.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And that class was not a good class. So that's what goes on with overall culture and messaging, is you need to be so consistent over time with building that messaging. And it's not always going to be perfect. Right. Like for some people who came to yesterday's program, it might have seemed like a total flop.
Yeah.
For other people who had the right attitude, they got the most out of that 30 minutes. And what I'm so excited to see is during this last program cycle, we focused on a lot of those movements. Yeah. I am so excited to see the people who focused 100% have it pay off with the movements that are more traditional and that people associate success with. And what I mean by that is like, if you focused, and you were at class yesterday.
Yeah.
If you focused a ton on your Bulgarian split squat and your single leg stuff, and then you would come in and your back squats are incredible, we're going to be like, this is why this person is incredible with back squats, right? If there's people who had that bad attitude with the single leg stuff, I promise you, it's going to be the same when they move into their squats. Yeah. So it's cool because we get it validated all the time, and obviously we're not going to out the people who don't do the work properly, of course, because that's not the right messaging. But we are going to celebrate the ones who do. Yeah,
for sure. So we'll have to chat later when we have that final, or when we hit those squats and stuff to see. We'll see the feedback you get and some of the results. But you posted on your social media a question.
Yes.
So let's bring that up now. And you said you've been getting some great answers from it. So I'll kind of let the listeners and viewers out there I'm sure that some of them already know because they've replied to them or seen it. So we'll kind of maybe take some of the answers you got. Would be kind of cool to hear.
Yeah, we just essentially asked because whenever you're immersing yourself in this, whether you're playing sports or whether you're part of our community, there's something that gets you in the door, especially when you're brand new. So I asked the question, I said, like, I'm going to be chatting with Ryan tomorrow and doing a podcast. What do you think comes first, mindset or action? Because I don't know if you remember, but in Jordan's podcast, I said, I'm a big action first guy. I need you to take the first step so that we can work through it together and teach you what you need to know in that action step. Yeah. So I asked, like, what comes first, mindset or action? And like 80% of people said that mindset comes first. Yeah. But the people who were most vocal and sent me cool messages were the ones that said that action comes first. So I'll read one of them. And someone I respect very, very, very much. So she said, taking action builds confidence and belief in oneself. When you have confidence, you can do anything. Mindset is super important too, but I think mindset will follow if you take action and create that self-belief. Then I said, to play devil's advocate, I said, I agree. I think action is so powerful, but what if your mindset prevents action? And I received a couple of messages on that too. But she responded, true, but I think people can get stuck in working on their mindset and never take action. For example, reading books, listening to podcasts, talking to others, taking workshops, going to motivational conferences, etc. Yet never move the needle closer to where they want to go. So as long as someone works on mindset temporarily, then jumps in, then sure. But a lot of people get stuck and just keep learning, but never truly growing because they aren't taking action and applying. Cool. So that was one of the pieces of feedback. I also received somebody who said that mindset comes first. And he said, this has been playing in my mind for a bit. It's like the chicken and the egg analogy.
Definitely.
Which comes first, right? I honestly think it's very individualized, which I would agree. Yeah. If the soil, this is what I like. He said, if the soil isn't fertile, nothing grows. No matter how much effort you put into it. And I think that was one of the most impactful ones I read because I'm such a big action first guy. Yeah. But if you take action and you have not developed your mindset, then sometimes that action can be very temporary. Yeah. So yeah, I found it very interesting putting out that type of messaging and the feedback I get from the community. What that means to me is like they feel safe talking about really meaningful things, right? And that's what allows us to build the culture and relationships we have.
And it's nice that they're aware, like, mindset is a thing to be recognized.
Well, when you must notice it. Like, most people talk about mindset now.
It's huge, and I've heard people talk about it now that were in the sports industry and were like, if you talked about mindset, like that was a no-no, you know? But now it's like I said, through health, I generalize as health and wellness. You have mental health, you have your everyday stresses. It's huge. And especially in sports, you're now hearing of these coaches that you don't hear about unless the player comes out and says that, you know, I had a mindset coach, a performance coach, talking with them. So it's definitely growing, and people are definitely more aware of it. It doesn't matter what industry you're in.
What's funny, what's funny too, like if we tie it back into our staffing conversation, is when I said I look for certain characteristics in people, high-fiving and supporting and whatever, that is them having a positive mindset. That is them having, being grateful for things around them, right? That is absolutely a mindset that I'm looking for. And because they have that mindset, it allows them to take action and be a part of our team and a functioning part of our team and help others. So it's like the chicken and the egg.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
Super interesting. But I thought you'd appreciate that because you speak so much about mindset. And
I hope when I go into the gym tomorrow or whenever it is, I'll get some people coming up to me and asking me or giving me their opinion.
Definitely.
It'll be cool to hear.
But how great is it to be able to have those conversations?
It's awesome.
Yeah, and that's why I'm so grateful, right? Because I get to, these people I respect so highly. They're professionals in their own way. They're high achievers in their own life. And I get to have these like enlightening, amazing conversations every day. Like what an amazing place to be.
So cool. And I think that I think for me anyways, that gives me energy to, you know, keep going, keep talking.
Absolutely. Like, I hope it does for people who are listening too.
And it's just a conversation, right?
Yeah.
You don't, there's no physical thing about it, and it's giving you energy. That's going to make you a better person. You know, it's crazy.
It's amazing what we bottle in, and that's what team is so important. I talked with Jordan in the last podcast about how my wife is like my number one. And she, when she stepped into my life, if for the first time, although I played sports, I don't know if I really had, whether it was a coaching thing or my own thing, I don't know if I felt ever as much a team as I do with my wife. Cool. Right. So, and I've realized that when I got that true feeling of being on a team, it actually made me full of energy. It made me feel invincible. And I hope that when people reach out to me with questions, or people in the future are going to reach out to you for help, I hope they realize that we truly want them to succeed. We are on their team. This is not just a transaction. These people in our communities, these 400 people inside of our community, have a team that wants to help them and raise them up. So my limiter in the past has been my inability to ask for help. We had a conversation before we started this, so we won't get into it, but I always had a hard time asking for help, and that made me feel lonely. Lately, in the last year, with growing our team and our staff and expanding the way we did, I have received so much help. And that has like made me such a stronger person, right? I have less ego about it, less afraid to make mistakes. So a team can be an absolutely life-changing thing. And that's why we're shifting into being team dioxide. Although CrossFit is our methodology, we're a team. And to me, that's way more limitless than just a fitness methodology.
And kind of tying these points together, process, culture, team. I remember my first podcast with Cleta. She's a judo athlete, individual sport. And we talked about the balance board and how important team is. So it doesn't matter where you go. I think team is always tied in to an individual aspect, whether it's a sport or business. It always plays a part. So kind of moving along the lines, through that, what's some of the best advice someone has ever given you throughout your journey as an athlete and as a business owner and as a dad?
You mentioned that he'd be asking me this. And like, I always am honest about the first thing that pops into my mind, and the first thing that pops into my mind is my dad. And he said, I had relationship like struggles in my younger years, and I just never felt like I really found like the person or my place in a relationship. And my dad one time, and I don't know why this sticks with me so much, but he's like, marry a girl or a woman who you think would be an amazing mother. And I was like, Dad, you're crazy.
Yeah, get out of here.
What are you talking about? Like, I was 24 or 25, like I had different ideas about the girl I wanted to marry. But I honestly, like when I met Jazz, that was one of the first things that ran through my mind, and I just couldn't believe it. But I've also recently, and this would be secondary, the second thing that pops into my mind, I shared this story about my art teacher in like grade 9, and this will tie back to our process thing. I was pretty good at art, like drawing and abstract paintings and all that stuff. And I'd done this drawing, and for me, the measure of success in art was the result, right? It was like, oh, I made this really cool thing, and I would get my validation from other people seeing my art, and people would be like, wow, that's awesome, and that made me feel good. But what happened is I drew this picture. And it got like a little bit like tattered in transportation home and back to school. So it wasn't in the best condition, and he was going to let me submit it anyways. So I was grateful for that or whatever. But he didn't like that I was okay settling for a subpar product, right? So what he did is he splashed a little dirty water in the middle and forced my hand at having to redo that artwork. And in the process of redoing that artwork, the result was actually way better than the first, like leaps and bounds better than the first. But it was because I was immersed in the process, and I started believing that I was capable of replicating these awesome pieces of art because of my work ethic, because of the skills I had built over the years in art. I was able to still replicate this great picture. It wasn't a one-time thing. You know, I didn't get lucky. So from that point forward, in my mind, I was like, man, if I just really focus on becoming exceptional with the process, and I endure it and I do the work, then I get to become somebody who gets amazing results, right? It's not the result. It's the person that I've become in the process of trying to do something great. And that's why in this business, I try to go through all of the mud. You know, I want to feel it and learn it for myself. I don't want anything to be given to me, because I know that in 10 years, I'm going to be able to be what I need to be to continue to do successful things, because I've done what it takes with the process. And that's what we try to tell our clients is like, do what you need to do with the workouts. Focus on the little small things to help you become somebody who is healthy, who is fit, who is capable, so that in the future, it doesn't matter if you're at my gym, if you move to a different country or whatever, you are that person. And that's what the process is to me.
What a great message through a story as a young kid. Good. I think I might use that analogy, the painting the picture.
Yeah, grade 9.
Some of my clients,
Mr.
for sure.
D.
Yeah,
I don't know. Maybe somehow he can listen to this, but it's funny the things, and this was how many years, like 15 years ago, something like that. Like it's amazing how these things stick with you. And it's funny, I told that story on social media, and one of the members actually reached out and was like, it was Mr. D. So I guess this teacher also has impacted other kids, but who knows if he knew that was going to have such an impact on my life. But that's what I hope to be for other people.
Oh, that's awesome. And I hope people listening here today, you know, get a sense of, you know, kind of what you're talking about through your own journey, about the process, the journey, and, you know, the final outcome is, you know, might be the cherry on top, might be just a huge lesson you learn, but don't take the journey for granted. You know, staying consistent, building good relationships, and surrounding yourself with people that bring you up, I think is huge. And I hope people listening today kind of get our vibes and get the message you're trying to send out there. And I just want to thank you for coming on, spending some time. I know you're a busy guy, so appreciate you coming on board. And Team Dioxide.
Team Dioxide, you got it.
There we go. Thanks, brother.